Okay, July 23, Thursday. It is the Alex and Marco show, the cartography open source sync. And I'm gonna share my screen on that tab. We're just gonna go through some of these meeting minutes. Okay. All right. So, yeah, like I was just talking with, me and Marco were just talking right now, talking about just adding some ideas and then maybe some things that we wanted help on and anything else that comes up. And people will probably join later on also. We're talking about the region issue. We're talking about having a problem with uh, you had that AWS handle regions decorator, and then it fixed some issues that we had with our GK, no, not GK, EKS sync,
Yes.
excuse me. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, that looked like it worked out pretty good. Before I go into anything that I have on these ideas bullet points, was there something that you had in mind, Marco?
No, I think so far so good. I was looking also at the previous meeting notes. Nothing major stands up.
Okay.
Maybe for the Docker issue 159 from the last month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that one real fast, actually. I'll see if I can go ahead and get that switched over. Was that, yeah, 1 second. Share this tab instead. Okay. Docker 159. So some more follow-ups and developments on the plans to Dockerize cartography. There were some things that we played around with. So last month, I might have talked about this maybe a little bit before our meeting last month. I can't quite remember, but I did do some playing around with how you can specify your Bodo 3 creds in a Docker container and let that be accessible. So there's a little bit of a code sketch here to let that happen. And then, so I think that there are some ideas in this that we can apply to Nishil's PR. And so if we can get those things to work together, I think that we would have at least a testable solution and have something that, if nothing else, then it'll let people have a starting point. Oh, there is one more thing too that I wanted to bring up when it comes to remember how there's that wait for?
Yes.
Yeah, because like you spin up a Docker container and then you want to find out is the Neo4j service running, and then so there's a number of different, I guess, ways to handle waiting for that, like including your own shell script or doing some I don't know, some other things. Neo4j, their actual operations manual talks about this, and oh gosh, I don't know if I can find it, but it's in their operations manual about waiting for something to come up. Um, anyway, I can't find the document right now, but when I actually do find it, I'll bring it up because I think that we combine what Nishils has put together so far. We add in the way to handle Bodo 3 creds, then we add in the way that Neo4j recommends to wait for your server to come up. I think then we would have a pretty robust solution at that point.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the operations manual, and yeah. And, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so cool.
All right.
Yeah, so hey Sasha. So with this one right here, yeah, so this is neat. So the Neo4j operations documents, it says how to pull Neo4j in order to know when it is ready for requests after starting up. So this is particularly useful if you want to do something that Dockerizes things. So example of polling in bash. And then so, I mean, I guess this is similar to that wait for Docker script, I guess, right? But at least it is a official ish solution provided by Neo4j. So using Bolt instead of HTTP example could look like, so where you're essentially adding a script to netcat that endpoint until it comes up. Yeah. So something that could be employed. It kind of, we'll see what happens. Anyway, just wanted to touch on this for a little bit, and then this is something that we're kind of the Docker thing is just something that we're going to kind of have on the back burner and then kind of sketch out different ideas and then have it open for discussion.
Okay, that's fine. Also, I just linked to the design document you started for this with the two main options. Personally, running in Kubernetes, approach 1 or 2 are kind of similar because we have a HashiCorp Vault agent that can provide credentials as files or mvars. So for use case on Kubernetes, both approaches are fine, basically. Unless if you use HashiCorp Vault, at least, basically. They're almost the same to implement. Yeah,
I'm okay. And I guess it just depends on what your given threat model is, which one you're going to secure. Do you have, what pattern do you think is more common? In my opinion is that environment variable credentials are more common, but what do you think?
Yeah, that is true. That is true, especially my personal experience is mostly with Vault. And with Vault, you can provide also via sidecar credentials on the file system as files as well. But the same can also be provided as mvars. But I agree with you, the majority of people use approach number 1, I think.
Okay. And just for anybody tuning in later, this document is an open document for anybody to work on and add ideas to. I just kind of quickly put this together and wrote any kind of ideas on here, just to make sure that we were going to cover all the different scenarios if we ever were to have a official supported Docker solution. But like I said, this is just something we're going to kind of have going on in the back burner, see where it goes. Hopefully can make something happen. Okay. The next thing I kind of want to talk about, we're kind of going down and up, but I'll just touch on this a little bit. But I wrote a little blog post, a little bit of a plug for me, about testing unwind versus 1x1. And this was something that I was very curious about, like what is the fastest way to actually load data to Neo4j? And so we wanted to compare two different approaches. And then so the first approach, well, I'll talk about this approach first, since this is, so the first approach would be you're going to call merge. And then so you take your data and then call it for, I don't know, n times. So you would call merge n times for this. So the rationale here is that you would be following Neo4j's guidance on keep your queries small, keep them, see what happens if you do lots of them, keep things simple. The second approach would be to use an unwind operation where instead of doing everything n times, you do it just once. And so you do it one time, and then by batching up all of the data that you plan to ingest into the graph via a, I guess, parameter. And then so it would kind of do that, I guess, for each logic for you via the unwind function, through that variable. And then so all of your data is batched up, then the Bolt connection gets set up, and then Neo4j kind of does a little bit of magic for you. So given those two things, what is the faster way? And then the experiment results that I found out, I was a little surprised. So my hypothesis was, I really didn't have a strong hypothesis either way. It could have gone either way, in my opinion, because I thought that, if you keep a really, really long query like this, and if you're really buffering maybe 30, 100 megabytes worth of text at that point, then, surely that's got to be slow. But at the same time, each time you are hitting this is a brand new Neo4j .run call being set up and torn down every single time, needing to do what they call, I don't know, a query plan. I don't really know the internals super well, but surely there's overhead here. And the results turn out that the unwind approach, so calling the, I'm sorry, yeah, so the results turn out that the unwind approach ends up taking about 1 second for 70,000 items, and the for each approach doesn't even finish because we end up observing the same problem that was in cartography issue 170, where the Neo4j service just messes up and dies. And so I thought, okay, well, let's try 7 million. So we try 7 million items, and then on the unwind approach, it takes about 100 seconds, a little under 2 minutes. And then, I didn't even bother trying 7 million items with the other approach because what's the point there? And one thing I forgot to mention in the blog post itself, this was Community Edition 3.5.16, I think, whatever I have on my laptop. Your mileage may vary on Enterprise. Haven't tested that yet. But anyway, in this particular case, I was very surprised to get at least a 900 times speed up factor. And I think that we can employ this in lots of other bottlenecks in the code, such as the resource tagging API. I'll take that on probably toward the end of the week, either probably tomorrow, but real easy wins right there.
That's nice. That's very nice. And I like the approach of taking one example, try it there, and then one by one, potentially moving everything over.
Yeah, because I know that Sasha had come up with, using that pattern in many places, and then I was just always curious, like how much better is, one over the other and things like that. Very, very dramatic difference, though.
Yeah, my focus has always been velocity and getting some scenarios out so I can get funding, right? So this is pure explore phase. You're looking at expand to optimize. I do feel we index a lot on performance. What's the rationale on that? Like, is performance really that big of an issue right now?
No. It's one of the performance is it depends on like people's use cases. Like personally, for I guess us at Lyft right now, it's not that much of an issue. Having a sync, having your nodes be up to date maybe twice a day, that's been fine for us. But if you can make it faster, you can make it faster, especially if these patterns like unwind, like you put together, we have them, make it run in 1 minute versus never finish. That's always good.
I think it's good to, I've shared my opinion with you directly. I have a strong desire to diversify the scenarios, add more modules, right? So I think Lyft is sitting on some modules that could be pretty interesting. Like over-indexing on performance, I think it's great performance. Fundamentally, there's a much bigger problem. If you're looking at really large scale, even if you tweak the unwind, it's not going to fix the problem, right? So the scale issues that we're having on my end is like, how do we ingest 25,000 AWS account with unknown amount of assets, right, is a different thing. Plus, there's some Intel modules that we're working on, like Fargates and AWS organizations that was needed.
Cool.
But like, I would love to see like the same sort of energy from a performance increase on queries. And sort of balance with continuing to extend the scenarios.
Yes.
So that I feel pretty strongly that cartography is still, to some extent, perceived as an AWS only. I know we have GitHub. I know we have potentially OCI. We need to go push on that. But I'd love some energy there.
Yeah, fair points. There is a GitHub PR in progress right now that I'm kind of experimenting with. Getting in Python libraries and possibly enabling other users to parse their own blobs and have their own transforms on those. I'm just sketching those things out. You can see it in it's in active PRs right now.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, no, that's good feedback. We definitely want to showcase the fact that we're more than just AWS.
Yeah. Well, add counterpoint.
And you know,
Hey, so hold on a second. I talked to someone from Cruise. They're actually use cartography internally. They said they only use it for kind of inventory management purposes right now because the syncs are so slow. That was like their feedback was, hey, it takes too long to sync things, so we got to make it faster before we want to use it for more stuff. And so, okay, that's.
Are they looking at sort of having a live streams?
They are not. No, they're not quite to that point. They just have a ton of individual accounts that are out there of varying sizes, kind of like you're talking about. So I think for them, maybe less about the individual sync speed itself, but the kind of DAG idea of like how do we execute these things in parallel would help them a lot for the speed.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It would be great to have them in these chat and start.
Yeah, for sure.
For us, maybe being more customer driven and says, okay, what are your true problem, right? I remember Alex and I were talking about hypothetically someone at Lyft that say, hey, we want things in real time. The reality is it was good enough for once a day, right? It was like, why do you need real time? Well, we want to check what's the frequency. Oh, we check this once a day. Well, like, so we need to dive a little bit into that. I don't want to say, and sorry if I sound dismissive of like performance. I think it's great. Plus, there's some good gems in there that you can share across the Neo4j sort of community as well, right? There's a max that you're going to get. So it would be interesting to compare performance between community and enterprise. The optimizer in the enterprise might actually infer the optimal way automatically. So it may or may not make a difference. It depends how their optimizers is working.
Right.
But for me, it's really about like diversity of scenarios and then highlighting through blog posts and presentations and so on something outside of AWS.
Makes sense. On the note of enterprise, just real quick, one thing that I've loved so far with playing with it is getting the query logger, because it'll highlight like which things are slower than a given threshold, so you can quickly find out the queries that are slowing down your sync.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just found that really cool.
Yeah, the profiler is pretty useful as well. And as you're expanding with more dependents, I think you're dealing with this, Alex. You can sandbox them.
Right.
Anyways, you've seen this at Microsoft, allegedly at Microsoft when we had multiple dependents. Sorry, I may have leaked something. Right. So one tenant cannot kill everybody, which is the case right now in community.
Right. Okay. The next one that I kind of wanted to talk to just a little bit. A long time ago, we made a issue to document needing to determine a consistent strategy for retries and error handling. And then so this is very abstract, very not very concrete. And then I kind of wanted to get people's thoughts on this one, on what is our philosophy or strategy for how are we going to handle failures. And to talk to this point, there's a couple of things to think about. So the way that I'll say what kind of I think about this topic first, I think that having a perfect sync is not something, I think having a failure-free sync isn't something to really aim for. And what I mean by that is that, APIs are going to fail. And then so the idea is that you run it, like if you run an AWS sync and then it dies halfway through, I think that it should continue on and get whatever else it can do, best effort, and continue on, and then just give you the best picture that it can get for that given run. It shouldn't die completely at the end of that sync. It should fail loudly for sure and let you know that it failed loudly at that point, but it should continue on and then get whatever else it can. Like there's other ways that you can kind of handle this too. Like previously, to contrast this approach, our original idea, at least talking with Evan before, was to let it fail loudly and let the whole thing die, because now at that point, your picture of the entire graph is inconsistent with whatever the state of the world is. But after some thinking over the past, I think, year or so, we've kind of come to the idea that, if your sync is taking 10 hours a day, then from the time that it starts to the time that it finishes, your state of the world already has changed in 10 hours. So you don't really have this precious idea that your graph is going to be already reflecting the world in a 100% accurate way from beginning to end. Anyway, just some thoughts to kind of get everybody, started thinking in that direction. What are some people's thoughts?
Well, I think there's blocker and unblocker exceptions, right? So I think that's fine. Having a graph free of syncs, there's too much diversity in the stack, and we're dealing with ephemeral environments like cloud, right? So you may ask a query at some point, the state is partial, you just don't know about it. Some attributes may or may not be available, right? So the idea is grab as much as we had the initial thinking is grab as much as you can. Around determined strategy for consistent retries and failure handling, I did propose in the past sort of a function definition, which I've used in the past for a distributed system, is something around like invoke operation with retries that has the delegate that has an array of exceptions to retry, basically retriable exceptions. And you can pass everything there. So write the retry and failure handling in a generic way, like a generic function there. I've seen that work very well in large distributed system. And then the call itself can provide context in terms of these are the exceptions that are retriable. Anything else, just bubble it up.
Yeah, that could definitely be something that we explore to abstract that all out. I think that that makes sense.
Because the delegate would be the actual operation itself, right? Which has the context of what you're calling. So it could be the AWS operation, could be the GCP, the GitHub operation, right? So you write it in a way that's completely agnostic. It doesn't care what it's running. All it cares is I need to retry this thing, right, for an amount of time. And if any of those exceptions occurs, I keep retrying. Else, that means unknown state and just bubble it up. And then you funnel everything through that. It becomes easier also to unit test.
I think that a design like this could come after, well, let me back up a little bit. I think that one of the original goals for the project that you talked about before was you want to enable the scenario where you have a red teamer who gets some set of creds and just wants to throw those creds into cartography and see what they can get. And then so the idea there is that if the creds only have a certain small set of permissions, we will still, attempt to get every single thing those creds have access to put them in the graph. And then so if there's like a permission failure at any given point, then it will skip over those failures and then kind of continue down the sync and see what else it can do.
Yeah, grab as much as it's the mindset is to grab as much as you can and report back, where permissions are failing.
Yeah.
Or you can have a switch that says fail on anything. I think Evan and I were looking at that. Is you add a switch that says, okay, bootstrap each Intel module. Do I have the right permission for each? Yes or no? And then if no, just fail with some insights. But you're right. Initially, it was like grab as much as you can. Don't assume that the account being used has permission for everything.
I think at this stage we're not ready for. Well, I think at this stage we're still in the not assume that your creds have permission for everything. I think that we should still operate under that philosophy, just for the sake of focus.
From a dependent perspective, they like, how do they know that they're bootstrapped properly, and they want to know, they want to fail fast. So having that option of like enforcing that, your customers may actually indicate to you that that is not the preferred approach.
Yeah, is that an issue that you're seeing right now?
Me? No, because we're still in the explore phase. So we can debug that. It's just when I'm referring dependent is I know you guys internally are having more and more dependence.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're like, what is the reliability of the data that they get, and are they willing to get partial data or not?
Yeah. At
Right?
least
so
for
in your case, you may have a switch that says if there's basically crash on anything.
Yeah. Oh, we can probably implement that, but as far as like that's a very valid need. It's a good approach. I think that for now we've kind of established that expectation that this is very best effort, and we're going to get the state of the world that we can. And then so if we don't get something on this sync run, then it will try again in like half a day.
Yeah, but you're potentially impacting decisions made by your that might be a hesitation from your dependents, right? So as you get more dependent, some data stores become first-class citizen, and first-class citizens provide some level of guarantee, and that's tied into the Lyft tier model as well. So I think Dan was trying to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's definitely something we should implement. I'm not sure how much time it would take to implement something like that. Seems to add a lot of flexibility and make it so you can, end users, dependents, whatever you want to call them, have a little bit of more control over what they want to do when the data does or doesn't load. So.
You have any thoughts on this, Marco? Like in the environments that you've been running cartography on?
Well, it depends very, and I agree that some kind of data will become first-class citizens. And also.
So I guess what you're saying is that it depends on what the data source is. Certain ones have different needs than others to different customers.
Yeah, service your customer, make your dependent your first-class citizen. That's how you're going to get funding for more people.
Yeah,
they will fund you if you do it right. They see value, and then they keep asking stuff, and you say yes, but give me a head to help. And if your data is inconsistent, they will work around you.
Yeah. Okay. So
the red teamers have a different mindset, right? So I think you should be more customer oriented and at Lyft, let the red teamer deal with it.
Right. Yeah, so having the ability to configure it on a per module, or at least per unit, would be valuable. Okay, now this is a good discussion. I'll try to, forgot to ask someone to be note taker, but then we can kind of look back at the recording and then kind of add in these ideas and then sketch something out. Yeah, no, I like this discussion.
So I don't know in which repo. It could be on the internal Lyft repo, or it's probably on the internal Lyft repo. I know Evan and I were looking at this sort of switch is, crash on any exceptions or don't crash on any exception. I remember that was a requirement early on. You might see some, and Evan always came up with very creative ways of dealing with it. There might be some traces of a solution somewhere in sort of uncommitted branch in internal Lyft.
Yeah, he always had some really good sketches.
We need to bring him back. So I'll try to get a hold of him.
Oh man, like if nothing else, just bring him back to this meeting. Okay, that's kind of the three things that kind of the three ideas that I had available on the agenda. As far as things that we needed help on, let me see. I'm just going to share the issue screen and look for help wanted. There's just some items here about adding in different data types for AWS that we've gotten internally at Lyft, support for Elasticache, Simple Queue Service, EMR. What else?
Andrew, I know we've talked about potentially using the help wanted strategy on our end. Did you look into that and potentially put module that we would need?
I have not put them in yet. There is a pull request for ECR that Evan had made.
Oh, yeah.
And so I might put in a request to get that one in, or try and get it in myself. Other than that, we are looking at a Fargate one, but I want to kind of make sure I understand what we could get out of Fargate and what makes sense before I create the issue.
Yeah, this looks nearly done. It's been here for a very long time, but yeah, we can attack this. Almost it's gonna hit its birthday soon.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the 6th meeting that we've had, so we've been running these meetings for half a year now. So, yay, everybody! Don't everybody be excited at once now.
People are muted.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, so AWS ECR. And that's kind of like everything that I had available, like on agenda that I had in mind. Anybody else want to talk about anything?
When is Lyft funding T-shirts for contributors?
I
I had budget for that before I left. Where did that go?
We need to. I don't know if you noticed, but then the rideshare business ain't so hot right now.
Yeah, we're being recorded. I'll keep my comments. I'm happy to fund it myself. I don't mind doing that. I just need some help, logistic help from Lyft. Let me ping Martin. Let me go bother Martin. Martin, and I think Martin is enough. I don't need to ping ESAR on that.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of the.
I would put it as an action item. I think anybody wants cartography T-shirts, or am I the only one that would like one?
That'd be cool.
All right.
I'll just put it on here.
Put my name on it. I'll figure it out.
Okay. All right, and on that note, I'm going to turn off the recording. Those of you who are joining us online, thank you for joining us. And then if you have any ideas, go put it in on the document and hit us up on Slack.